It's the end of work as you know it. Welcome to WorkEND, a Neurodiversity Podcast, a monthly panel discussion exploring the innovative world of neurodivergent individuals redefining work. Join us as we share unique perspectives, experiences, and ideas. Brought to you by Umbrella US and hosted by the fabulous Salena Gavin. This platform features candid conversations with neurodivergent self-advocates and allied community members. Gain firsthand insights into their journeys and discover how ND traits have become powerful assets while challenges continue to be present. Whether you're seeking belonging, inspiration, and new understanding, or aiming to create a more inclusive workspace, WorkEND, a Neurodiversity podcast, offers knowledge, personal stories, and actionable insights. Subscribe today to reshape your perception of work and expend energy in a brand new way.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to WorkEnd. I am your host, Salena Gavin. Again, hello. This is a live discussion panel, and we want to provide an opportunity for you, the viewers, to participate in the discussion as our panelists discuss work in its many contexts. We invite you to actively participate. I know I'm not looking at the screen right now. You know, I'm reading until I can get this down packed. So just bear with me. We invite you to actively participate in the comments section. All comments will be valued and considered as we continue to work together toward our future success. Please remember that we embrace curiosity and invite different perspectives and opinions. We ask that everyone remember that we are all at different levels of knowledge and experience. We can have positive and compassionate discussions, even when we do not agree. So let's get started. Our panelists that we have today are Elena Bravos, Geraldine Mongold, and Stacy Casson. I hope I said it's either Casson or Casson. I hope I got that right. I'm sure she'll correct me when she comes on. Each comes to the table, of course, with her own experience and expertise, as only WorkEnd always brings you. We look forward to hearing what each of you have to say. Okay? So come on, humans, let's get this started. Elena, please introduce yourself.
Hey everyone, I'm Eliana. I use she, her pronouns. I am one of the co-founders of ND Connect. I work a lot on our community building side. Just to give you a brief visual description, I am a young white woman with long brown hair. I have brown eyes, and I am wearing a blue quarter zip sweater, and I'm just up against a plain white background. Yeah, I love community building. ND Connect, we're building a mentorship and peer support platform for neurodivergent people to connect with others who share their lived experiences and grow with community. I'm super passionate about mentorship because I have ADHD as well as some mental health disabilities. And in university, I ended up connecting with a mentor who also just happened to have ADHD completely by accident, and it really changed my life. So I'm just trying to make connections like that more accessible to other people, because I really believe that we all deserve other folks who will champion us and support us along our journeys.
Thank you so much, Elena, and that is so true. We need people to support us in order for us to make it. We need other people. I don't understand why other people don't understand that. Next, we have Geraldine. Please introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Geraldine Mongold, and I am a reading coach at Prince Edward Elementary School in Virginia. I am a middle-aged white woman with shoulder-length graying hair. I'm wearing a scruffy gray t-shirt, and I'm coming to you from my home office. I'm really glad to be here and meet all of you. I'm very excited about it.
Thank you so much, Geraldine. And next we have Stacy. And Stacy, please correct me on the pronunciation of your last name.
You got it right the first time. One of the few
cool.
people that did not turn me French. I am Stacy Casson.
Cool.
Thank you. For those of you who can't see me, I'm a very tan middle-aged woman with short salt and pepper hair. I have in a blue flower. I'm wearing clear glasses and a very colorful scarf over a black top. My alter ego other self is the Clarity Concierge. We ask powerful questions to get you deep insights, and I'm so excited to be here amongst these incredible panelists.
I absolutely love the descriptions all of you gave. They were absolutely awesome. So thank you for all those awesome introductions of yourselves. Let's begin. I'm going to give us a couple rules and regulations. Our panel discussion will last 50 minutes. 15 minutes per question, 5 minutes per person per question. We do have some room. Oh, wow, it's 5 minutes. Last week it was 4 minutes. I'm sorry, last time it was 4 minutes. So it's 5 minutes this time. So that's awesome. We do have some room for you to go over, so don't worry about it if you do. Of course, we do want to try to stick to the time as close as possible. So when you are getting to that 5-minute mark, I will give you the finger, if you know what I mean. Just to let you know, okay, that you're approaching that mark. But we really want to hear everything that you have to say. All right. Are you guys ready?
Yep.
Okay. Our first question is for Elena. No, Ileana, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's right.
All right. Talk about your personal identity. Who am I? And your work identity. What I do, any kind of work. That sounds very difficult. Let me rephrase that. Talk about your personal identity, who I am, and your work identity. Are they the same or are they different? And is there any type of overlap?
Yeah, absolutely. So I will say I am a startup founder now. So I think in my life, there is a lot more overlap between my personal identity and my professional identity or work identity than there used to be in the past. For me personally, I'm super passionate about neuroinclusion, and now my startup is all like oriented around that. And so I feel like that's been like a big kind of merging about my former more like hobby or personal life and my professional life. I also think it's really lovely because I work on a very neurodiverse and neuro-inclusive team. And so I feel all of us have really created an environment where we can bring more of our personal selves or full selves to work. That's was one of our goals in terms of how we've designed our organization and just our own like value system as a team. And so we're able to really navigate a lot more of those personal conversations. We talk about the real things that are going on in our life. If we need to step away from work for caretaking responsibilities, if we just weren't feeling up for it and our brains weren't cooperating that day, we're very transparent and honest with each other. So in many ways, it feels a lot more like I'm able to just talk to my friends compared to talking to, you know, a boss or a manager. We're very non-hierarchical. That's part of our cooperative model. And so that's been great. I think for me, if anything, I'm trying to put more of an active effort to try and have a little bit more work-life separation sometimes because I'm so hyper-focused on everything that we've been doing that I'll wake up at like 3 a.m. and then like want to work on my startup. And before I would let myself kind of like engage in hobbies like that, but when I'm already working on it, you know, all day, I'm trying to put in some things that are more preventative so I don't burn out. So really forcing myself to take time to, you know, go on hikes and enjoy these other hobbies that I have too. Personally, I really love being outside, participating in like art. I'm really big on community, so I love hanging out with people and just having deep conversations. It's great because I've been doing a lot of that in our community too. So I don't know. I think that you can tell from my answer that there's a lot of blending that's happening right now, and that's definitely something that I am actively trying to figure out. And then in terms of, you know, whether or not I think that there should be some similarities between them, personally, I really don't like being prescriptive about other people's behaviors. And I think that like whether or not, you know, people want to have similarities depends a lot on the environment. So, you know, if you are fortunate enough to work at a place where you can more of your self to work, I think that that's lovely, but a lot of people don't have that privilege. And I think in those environments, it's not an individual's responsibility to, be more authentic or to disclose. But I really think that that burden falls on like the employer to ensure that environment is safe enough for people to feel more comfortable participating in a way that feels best to them.
I like how you touched on the fact that it's different for different people and different environments. So some people may think it's perfectly fine to have more similarities between work life and home life. And then you have people that are like, I'm leaving that at the door. Okay. Like everything stays at work and I'm not taking anything home. But it sounds like what you're dealing with right now is pretty healthy. You're doing a good job so far.
Thank you. No, I appreciate that.
Yes. Okay, so Geraldine.
Yeah.
Same question.
Okay. This, I actually had to think about this quite a bit because in terms of my identity or how I define myself, I tend not to define myself by the work that I do. The things that make me are independent of what I do for a living. So I would say for myself personally, the things that are the most important aspects of my life are the things that just keep on tugging me back and don't let me go. One of those is definitely I have children and they control. I would say I have an abiding love for the outdoors, the wilderness, hiking, camping. I live in the country. I much prefer to work outdoors. That's just a very consistent aspect of who I am. And writing. I've always been a writer. I love writing. I write poetry. I write a blog. I feel the need to write things down. It's kind of a compulsion. So I think those things would definitely be like things that have been consistent throughout my whole life in terms of who I am. In terms of like my actual career, I would say my resume is really eclectic. I have done lots of different things, and maybe that's why I can't like identify myself by any of them. I've been a soldier. I was in the Army for 10 years. A teacher, a software engineer, an IT consultant. I ran an art gallery for a year. So those things are really kind of all over the place in terms of, what I've done. I would say that the things that I bring to any of those roles is fairly consistent in terms of the characteristics that I just bring to work. I'm super analytical. I always have been. I fancy myself, I guess, because I'm a writer at being good at communicating. Hopefully I am. I'm a very empathetic person, so I can easily put myself in other people's shoes and feel, you can't really feel what other people feel, but I can definitely use my imagination to make that attempt. I'm a very persistent person. I just never give up. And I'm kind of like annoyingly married to reality, so I'm super into figuring out what the truth is and digging down sort of below the surface on anything that I do. So those are just kind of like aspects that I bring to my work. Right now, what I'm doing is, like I said, I'm a reading coach at an elementary school. How I got that job is almost accidental, but I'm really enjoying it. I work with kids, many of whom are neurodivergent and who are struggling with their reading and writing skills. Bring them into a small group environment and work with them in a small group to try to use phonics and coaching to help bring them up to a grade level of reading. And I think that's just a really important job and I enjoy doing it.
Okay, Geraldine, you said you got the reading job by accident. Tell us a little about that.
So I was a licensed teacher in Oklahoma many years ago. I taught German. German is actually my major in college. But that license had expired some time back. Okay. When I moved to Virginia, it was during COVID, things got weird career-wise. I was working for a political campaign and I was canvassing, going door to door. And I knocked on someone's door and fell into a conversation, which is a thing I do. And it turned out, I ask people questions and they just tell me stuff, right? So it turned out the lady I was speaking with actually was one of the reading specialists at the local elementary school. And she said they were hiring for reading tutors. And I said, well, the election is coming up in a month and I'm going to be out of a job. So she invited me to apply, and I've been working there since. So it was
Awesome.
just a lucky chance, right? And I'm
Yes.
really enjoying the work. It's a lot of fun. Unfortunately, it doesn't pay very well.
Right, right. And unfortunately, anything in that field doesn't pay very well, but hopefully
Yeah,
times will change.
I
Thank you,
hope.
Geraldine. Okay, Stacy, same question. What do you think about your personal identity and your work identity? Are they different or are they the same? And do you see any similarities?
Yeah, I think I agree with the others that there is a little overlap, but I definitely don't identify my identity with my work. A personal identity is kind of what do I want to leave behind when I'm gone, and the most important thing for me is to be kind. My personal identity is something that's curious. I've always been curious. As I learned to talk, I asked questions, and they were the questions parents don't want to hear. Like, Mommy, what is RAPE? I read it in the newspaper, and she's like, "Look in your dictionary." She's like, I looked in my kid's dictionary, it is not there. So I've always been somebody that's curious, maybe the curiosity, but I haven't died yet. So if I am a cat, it has not killed me. I'm not afraid to ask questions. My parents raised me to advocate for myself. My mother never wanted us to be timid or shy people. We're supposed to be big and walk in the majesty of everyone else. My work identity is similar in that it's funny, one day at work they were joking, is like, what does she do around here? And I do a lot. But it really struck me because I couldn't put a finger on what officially I did. I've always worked in more support roles, so it's kind of squishy. And I need to, like, maybe I should quit because they're paying me money and like I'm not doing anything here. And we had this new training that came out, and it helped me to identify that no, what I do here is I help people. I'm a connector. I bring people together. I'm somebody that holds space and listens. And part of my day job is to listen to what our customers have to say. So there is some overlap in that. I do try and be kind no matter where I am. I try and be my authentic self to the best of my abilities. Do I mask up sometimes? Absolutely. But I am going to wear my signature flag in my hair. I am going to come to work dressed as a unicorn if I feel like it, because that brings me joy. And what do we have to be afraid of? So I challenge people, especially, I think I'm very literal. If you tell me to be my authentic self, then I hope you can handle my authentic self. My
I
and
feel the
and
same way.
and there's so many different kinds of work. I mean, there is work that is the job, which I don't want any spoilers, but it's like there's work that I grew up with, knockoff Cinderella, and she had the best work song, but it's like sweeping, dusting, mopping, scrubbing, every day's the same. So there's that kind of work, and about
Mhm.
work that doesn't pay enough. The things that is, to me, considered women's work is often not paid enough. And in my work identity, sometimes being a nurturing, caring person, I think that is sometimes not that I'm asking to be paid to care, because that's, but like that kind of work, people don't often appreciate it because it's not part of your core value. And then there's just the idea of doing the work for personal growth. So I'm very literal and I like definitions. And the definition of work is to work on something, is to do something to accomplish a task or goal. So I think it has to define you, but I think your personality comes into play when you are doing work. Maybe your personality is to think of a lot of things. We have an analyst. Maybe your personality is, I call myself a professional hummingbird because I'm interested in so many different things and I flit from here to there. That's how I approach my work. So are they the same? No. But is there some overlap? Yes.
Thank you so much. I did want to piggyback on something that you said. It's so sad that many neurodivergents, you mentioned like sweeping, cleaning, the same things every day, and you mentioned personality in your work. A lot of neurodivergents I see in my community, they have wonderful personalities, but the work that they are allotted to do, they're not allowed to show their personalities in that work, because the work that they are given is just cleaning or trash dispensing, things of that nature, because it's seen that they're not capable of doing anything more, and that's not true. No one's taking the time with them or changing things to accommodate them. So that's a big thing. Personality. I love that. Our next question, and you mentioned this and you said you didn't want to spoil anything. Do you think there is a difference between work and a job? And we're going to start with Geraldine with this one. If so, what is the difference between work and a job?
Well, the way I think about it is that my job is what I get paid to do.
Mhm.
And work is basically anything that takes my time and effort. I would say I probably work harder at my non-job work than my job work a lot of times. Um, Raising a family is work. Rescuing horses, which is an expensive
Oh,
hobby that I
wow.
have, is work. Planting a vegetable garden is work. Playing violin, which I also do, is work. In For me, mostly the things that I care the most about and feel like they're closest to my identity um, are the things that I do that I'm not getting paid to do. So I do a lot of volunteering. Um, I volunteer with the local theater group. I play with the local chamber orchestra. I volunteer with political campaigns and local nonprofits. And learning how to say no is hard for me. Like, oh, I can actually say this is too much. I can't do all of this. I have to pick and choose. And that's hard because I want to be a part of my community and I want to be valued in my community. But all of those things are also work, and you do have to kind of pick and choose how much energy you're going to spend on them. So I think that's the difference for me between job and work is really whether or not it's providing a paycheck at the end of the week.
Got it. And I know I have a lot of people that are in our professions have second jobs. And like I have a second job at the mall and I
Mm-hmm.
consider that work. And my job is like my career,
Mm-hmm.
um, where I get the big bucks for. So I totally understand where you're coming from. Stacy, do you think there is a difference between work and a job?
I do. A job is something that I don't think it's just something that you get paid to. I think it's something that sometimes you have to get paid to do it. But when I'm at work, if I'm enjoying what I'm doing, it doesn't feel like a job. It just feels like, oh, wow, they're actually paying me to do this because this is my jam. Oh, we're digging deep into something where we're rabbit holes. That's super interesting. And I get paid to do this. That's awesome. But like when you're sitting in a tedious meeting or I have to do math, I hate math. Like that's when it becomes a job.
Ooh,
You don't have
that would be me.
complete and full autonomy over it, then it's a job to me. Sorry, did I interrupt you? I'm sorry.
Oh no, you're perfectly fine. Go ahead. I was just agreeing with the math part.
Oh, okay. I like math. I'm just so bad at it.
Oh, me too.
So I think a job is like a job you can't just say well you can like I quit bye, but you can't just say I'm not this today because I don't feel like it. It's not as easy to do that even if we can say no because you have certain contractual obligations
It's
to
like
do
people
it.
depend on you when you have a job. Like there's people or things depending on you, I feel like.
Yeah, that is part of it as well. And again, there's this idea of a contract, but
Mhm.
the things that I do in the home as a parent, that is work, but it's not a job. Nobody's paying me to do it. I'm not asking to be paid to do that. But I think that's the difference. Like, getting paid to do my job is great. And if I didn't have to worry about bills and expenses, I'm really fortunate that for the most part, I really enjoy what I do. And I think that's rare and a gift. It suits my personality. I get to be curious. I get to ask questions. I get to challenge people. I get to challenge myself often. And that's important to me. So when both of those align, it almost doesn't feel like a job. But there are those moments where we don't have the full control and autonomy, then it becomes a job for me.
Thank you. Ileana, what do you think?
Yeah.
What's the difference between work and a job?
No, I really love that question. And I definitely echo what other folks are saying here. For me, I see a job as like a place where work may or may not happen, especially if it's a 9 to 5. It's an office job. Is work going to happen there? Maybe sometimes, but
I like that.
I'll say my crazy that day. But I think that in general, for me, I really get a greater sense of value or fulfillment from work compared to just a job because, I'm actively, my connotation is that with work, it's a process that you're like actively engaged in, regardless of what like the emotional valence of that is. Like, maybe you're like dreading work, doing this specific type of work, but you are actively engaged in it compared to a job where it's like more of a chore or it might be your day job, but you have to do that and your engagement level isn't really relevant to that definition. For me, work is also much more encompassing to include like all of the labor I do in my life. So emotional labor can be work, caretaking, as other folks have mentioned too. Really anything that I'm doing to achieve a specific purpose or resolve. And I also do want to say that I really do think that all labor is valuable. Like, it's sad when people's optionality is limited because of their identity, but also we should value like the work that cleaners and caretakers and garbage disposal do and pay them more because our society literally does not function without them. And so I think that it's important for us to recognize and value all of that labor too. And then I really agree with, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I really agree with what Stacey said about autonomy. For me, when I feel most like fulfilled in my work is when I'm really connected to the impact that I'm making. It needs to feel purposeful. Am I just working to make other people richer, or am I doing work for some other purpose here? And that's why I really like cooperatives as a model. Cooperatives, especially worker-owned cooperatives, I think really distribute like the benefits and burdens of doing labor a lot more equitably across different stakeholders and organizations. And for me, my favorite theory kind of regarding labor is like self-determination theory, where I think in work environments, what makes more people feel fulfilled is when they feel like they have that autonomy and ownership over their work, when they feel a strong sense of community and belonging, and when they feel well-resourced and well-equipped to do the things that they're doing. Those are like the best predictors of job satisfaction and life satisfaction. And so, I don't know, I'm kind of on a tangent here, but those are my thoughts on this question.
No, that was awesome. I mean, everything you said was awesome. I think the first thing you said was the most often, does work always happen at a job? That's amazing because it doesn't. I can definitely attest to that. Our next question, how does neurodivergence affect your work positively or negatively? And when answering, think about any form of work that you might be doing, employment, volunteering, caretaking. How does your neurodivergence affect that? We're going to start with Stacey.
Okay, we're gonna go with the definition of neurodivergent, that is just a brain that is not typical. I don't have any diagnoses or anything like that, but just looking at how I approach the world, I'm probably part of that wonderful family. And how does it affect my work? Because I have friends and families that are neurodivergent, I think I do a lot of perspective taking. Are things clear and easy to understand? I know I'm very literal, so sometimes that's partly why I ask questions, because I want to make sure I understand and that we're all on the same page. And I have other friends that are on the spectrum, and they ask me questions like, did you mean that literally, or is this really going to happen? And so it's made me just become more, try to be more inclusive, try and be more thoughtful about how I approach things, and building consensus and understanding to make sure that everyone is on the same page. It's asking people, what did you hear me say? Or it's repeating back, this is what I heard and understood. Am I correct? Am I getting that right? And that gives them the space to say, well, no, this is what I meant here. I I guess the closest thing I have is shiny object syndrome. So I need to be to find things that are stimulating, or I need to make it fun. Like the other day, I was narrating that I'm on a nature documentary just because it was a rough day and I needed some levity. I'm the person that will order a bunch of shiny light up rings because I think we need some joy. We need a little joy sometimes. So how it helps is that you think of things from a different perspective, and if you're open to other perspectives, just being exposed to people that literally think differently from you, I think it enriches everything. How it negatively affects me is I often bite off and chew because I get bored. And when you're on, I don't know, when you have time and energy, you don't notice that this takes a longer time than you actually think, and all of a sudden you're overwhelmed. That has been definitely something that since I've noticed it, I don't do that as often, and I try and find side of work to do that stimulation. Like work can't be your be all and end all. Work is not going to come and hold you at night, right? So
Exactly.
I think that's how it affects my work. It's thinking differently, trying to think outside the box, and embracing that other people have different viewpoints. And I think that makes organizations stronger if they would be more open to people that don't think the same way, that don't say yes to everything, that challenge you because they don't see it. Literally, they don't have the same perspective that you do, whether it be because of a different lived experience, whether it because of their neurodivergence, or whether it just be they don't agree with you, and we have to be open to that.
Thank you. Stacy, or I'm sorry, Ileana.
Yeah,
Your
absolutely.
thoughts?
Yes, let me start with caretaking as a form of work. I really do like this question. I think for me, so two of my diagnoses are I have ADHD, and then I also have PTSD, some like trauma history. And I think that both of those really reflect on my caretaking. And I think that there's a very big difference between caring for somebody else and then like caring for myself. So I find it like way, way harder to care for myself. I think that with my ADHD, having like external accountability, so, seeing my partner or my sibling or whoever else, need to eat or, need to sleep or whatever else is really like motivating for me. And I think because they're so visible and they take up so much mental real estate in my life, then it's much easier to take care of myself too if I have like somebody else that I'm caring for. But for myself, if I'm just like working during the day and, I'm only accountable to myself, it'll be 10 p.m. and I'm like, oh my gosh, I haven't eaten dinner yet. Why do I have a migraine? Oh, I haven't peed today. So I think that that's definitely something I've noticed. However, I think because, again, more of that, I think because I have become so good at needs anticipation because I've had to at different points in my life, I think it makes me really strong in terms of being able to support other people in my life, care for friends, care for the other people in my workplace very proactively, especially because in our startup, I really like taking on like a servant leadership style and really being a facilitator, really supporting other people in taking on different roles and making sure that everybody has their needs met all the time. And so I think my neurodiversity definitely helps me in those capacities. But it can be negative like for myself if I'm neglecting like my own care needs and, not sleeping, not eating, like that also makes you worse at work if you're not keeping up with them. So it's been a lot of figuring out what systems work for me a lot more explicitly to ensure that I have those structures in place to support me. And like, you don't have to do it alone. Literally, my co-founder texted me earlier today at like 5 p.m. and was like, I was thinking about what you said, the other day. And so I'm texting you now to make sure that you've eaten dinner or you've eaten something today at like 5 p.m. And so it's really lovely because we are able to be very candid and have those relationships. And more in employment context, I think it really depends on like the nature of the work. So for ADHD, a lot of people describe it as not, having an issue paying attention to everything, but more difficulties regulating your attention and what you pay attention to. So I think for me personally, if I don't want to do something, like if I don't want to do laundry, or, oh God, I really don't want to, I don't know, I hate documenting. Like that's work that I just really don't like.
Yes.
So that kind of repetitive stuff, I really have trouble regulating my attention to that sort of stuff. And I just like put it off. I don't want to do it. But that said, if I really love the work I'm doing, I really love community building, I love talking to people, I like outreach work. So in those respects, I can really sit there for, 8 hours. And again, forget everything else going on in my life and just get into a good flow state where I'm getting so much done. I really resonate with what Stacey said about being a hummingbird. I feel like for me, I'm very much like a pollinator or a bumblebee, where sometimes I get the most done if I just like let my brain go from task to task and just, really focus on what it wants to pay attention to. And so I think in a startup context, it's really valuable because you're really able to have that flexibility and autonomy over your work, which is the theme of this conversation. Having anxiety, I think perfectionistic procrastination is something that I've struggled with a lot of my life. And then also just lack of confidence. My grade 2 teacher on my report card, and even like after that, would always say, you're so good at whatever you're doing, but you really don't believe in yourself. And I think that sort of imposter syndrome and having so much anxiety about things not being perfect makes it really challenging to do things sometimes without having like pressure or urgency. And so that's something that I've had to like learn to navigate around. But I also do think that it's very different working in another employment context. Like there's definitely been times in other workspaces that I've been perceived negatively because of some of my neurodivergent tendencies. Like for example, at my first job, some of my colleagues told me that I was being perceived badly for like working too much because people like assumed that I just wanted to make them look bad, which is like a wild thing because I'm a very literal thinker. So I'm like, okay, well, we're here for an 8-hour day. Like I need to be working like every single hour of this day. And like I realize now that that's not how a lot of neurotypical people work. But in that context, that was definitely what I felt like I needed to do. Or sometimes, you're a direct communicator and you have a strong sense of justice. And so you advocate for certain policies or bring things up, and then other people can perceive you as, being a know-it-all or being rude, especially if you're a woman.
Yes.
And so I think that there's a lot of layers there.
Thank you so much for that, Ileana. When you talked about like yourself with ADHD, I also have ADHD, and the perfectionist in me, a lot of times in my work and being African American and my neurodivergence would negatively affect me in the way of not speaking up, because I would always second guess myself. My ADHD would always tell me, but what if I'm wrong? And then I would say, well, they all automatically are going to think I'm wrong, or they're already judging me because I'm African American, or they already think I'm not good enough. So I would put all of this on myself and all this pressure on myself, and I wouldn't succeed. I wouldn't move any further because I would allow myself to be bogged down by all the stereotypes of neurodivergence and being BIPOC. Geraldine, how about yourself? What do you think?
This is kind of a hard question for me. So like Stacey, I have no formal diagnosis of neurodivergence. If you look at, there's a popular image going around that shows a Venn diagram of overlapping circles showing autism, ADHD, and giftedness, right? And there's a lot of overlap between those three definitions, if you will. And I definitely can look at it and self-identify every single bullet point in the gifted circle, including those that are in the autism and ADHD areas. So, for what it's worth, thinking my brain is different than other people's has certainly always been a common theme in my life, and never really understanding why. I think for me, the thing that makes me distinct, and I experienced this quite a bit when I was working as a consultant, is it's not just that I'm a big picture person. I have to have the big picture to make sense of the little things. So I've worked with people who are like, oh, I take all the little things and I figure them out and then I put them all together and it makes a big picture. And I'm like, how do you do that? I don't know how you do that. Like, I have to start by having some kind of comprehension of the total, the whole. And then I can start looking at the details and understanding them. And, so, I mean, there's a word for that. They call it systems thinking, which sounds really cool. But I've discovered that it's not always something that's valued, because people are like, oh, that's above your pay grade. Like, literally, when I was in the Army, I was in military intelligence. And one of the things that's true about the Army in general, military intelligence in particular, is everyone is replaceable. It's expected that your life expectancy is limited in an actual combat situation. And so no one has the big picture, right? You have your little piece of the picture, and you send your reports off to NSA, and they have the big picture, right? And it used to frustrate me so much, because I'm like, but how do I know if the work that I'm doing is correct or valuable if I don't have the big picture? And it's like, you don't need to know that. So that's like, you don't need to know is the bane of my existence. I really despise that phrase more than anything else, I think, on the planet. But one of the things I think that it's been useful to me in other contexts is that, if someone's like, well, how does this work that we're doing fit in? I'm like, okay, I've got the big picture. I was actually working for a while as a consultant, and I would do when new people came on is I walk up to the an ecosystem of every single system at Dell out of my head, because it was there. And people were like, how do you do that? I'm like, I don't know. It's just there. But that's, but without having that understanding, I wasn't able to do the small things. So that's really key for me. And I think one of the things that has become more true as I've gotten older is that within that big picture, I have to know that the work I'm doing has value. And I want to know that the work I'm doing doesn't do harm. And that's really important to me, right? And so, like, being able to understand that context, place the work that I'm doing within that context, and know that it has value and it elevates the human condition in some way that's meaningful is really important. So recently, and this is like where I guess it kind of sucks to be me in some ways, I was actually working full-time as a kindergarten teacher with the district where I'm currently employed. And I made it a month. And literally, I couldn't do it. Like, I was having nightmares. I couldn't sleep. I was just riddled with anxiety. And for me, a big part of the problem was something Stacy particularly touched on, and Eliana as well, is I did not have any autonomy at all in my work. Wow. Like, from the state Department of Education down, the curriculum, the methodologies, the assessments are all extremely prescriptive. There's really not any room for modification or creativity. And for me, I literally just could not comply in that environment. I just couldn't do it. And I'm like, I need to not be doing this anymore. So luckily, the district was like, well, what would you like to go back and be reading coach? And I'm like, yes, because that worked for me fine. Right. So that's what I'm doing. But yeah, like, so literally, I think it's gotten worse as I've gotten older, because maybe I'm just getting more hard-headed in my old age. But being able to be like, yeah, I can make this work for me. I feel like I'm providing something that's valuable and I'm not doing harm is incredibly important to me.
I definitely agree with that. The biggest thing I think with neurodivergent individuals is one thing that we cannot do is sit around at a table and discuss how to solve a problem but never actually solve the problem. Do you know what I mean? Like you have these
Mm-hmm.
board meetings and you have these meetings at work and everybody breaks off into these small groups and you're going to have this task and you're going to have this task and everybody talks about these things, but nobody ever implements them. It never happens. And this is what bothers me so much in the workplace. And I think that's my neurodivergence, that OCD that's just like, are you kidding me? We're going to talk about this again. We're going to go back to the drawing board again on this. I thought we did this. And that sometimes, no, not sometimes, that all the time gets me in trouble, So, I'm always being reprimanded. I also know that because of that and because of my race, I'm perceived to be extremely aggressive. Um, I can say something just as plain as simple as, I don't think that this meeting is getting us anywhere. I think maybe we need to, you know, go a different way. And another person might say that, but for some reason, what I said is being taken so aggressive. And then I'm being, punished for that. And that again has made me stuff myself, like just don't say anything, just be quiet, just go with the flow. So I think that happens a lot of times with neurodivergence too. Does anyone have anything else to add? Because I think this was totally awesome tonight. um Managing work and home, I don't think will ever be easy. And if you're neurodivergent, I think it makes it even more difficult for individuals to do so. But I think that's why we're here. We're here to make it easier. Does anyone have anything else to add, guys? Geraldine? Stacey? Nana?
I just
Eliana
wanted to
had her hand up.
piggyback. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was just saying Eliana had her hand up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, go
Oh,
ahead.
go ahead, Ileana.
No, I was just going to thank you, Salena, for talking about
Oh.
home policing, because I think that it is so important that people learn how to pay attention to what people say and not how they're saying it, because so many neurodivergent people's voices, so many neurodivergent Black women's voices specifically are discarded because of like perceptions of like their tone or being angry, and it's so
Right.
easy to miss people because of that. And so I think that, you know, that's a really important like actionable takeaway for anyone listening, is to really like check yourself on that and hold yourself in as well. And the other thing I wanted to say is just on being a startup founder, a lot of neurodivergent people are really like overrepresented, especially like ADHDers, I think are 3 times overrepresented in entrepreneurship. And I think a huge part of it is going back to that autonomy piece. There's a lot of job crafting involved, and being able to really design environments that work and fit for you. Like, for example, going back to the first question, I was reflecting a little bit more on like my own personal identity versus, my work identity. And in most workplace contexts, you don't talk about specific topics. You don't talk about politics at all, even if it's your value system, right?
Right.
In our environment, we're really able to talk about those things quite candidly and talk about like disability justice and the values that we hold and how are we centering that at the core of all of the work that we're doing. And so I think that that's another benefit maybe for anybody who might be thinking about it. And I'd always be happy to connect with anybody else who wants to learn more about what that process is like.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Ileana. I was going to say, I need to get a job where you were at. It sounds like your job is awesome.
It does, doesn't it?
Yes. Geraldine, you had anything else to add? I'm sorry. This is just my baby who jumped up here.
Oh, so cute.
Thank you.
Oh, man. He's got to be on camera. You got to show the dogs, man.
Of course, right?
No problem. Yeah, I just kind of wanted to add to what you were saying, Salena, about people perceiving your tone in meetings and wanting to get the job done.
Mm-hmm.
And, having been in that situation where I'm just like, okay, let me grab a dry erase marker and let's just get this figured out now. And people are looking at me like, who are you again? I'm like, who invited you to this party? Like, I don't think so. Yeah, and so it can be really difficult, especially if you're not perceived as being an authority, to be heard. And I
Yes.
think especially it's true of for women, for neurodivergent people, for people of color. And if you're all three, it's definitely an uphill struggle. So
Thank
feeling
you.
for you, and I hope people get smarter about listening to everyone, regardless of where their message comes from.
Thank you. Stacy?
Yeah, I agree with you on the intersectionality of the different parts of us that bring us together and where we are on the spectrum of privilege. Are we allowed to be listened to? Or perhaps if you are neurotypical, but maybe you're nonverbal, or maybe you are one of the not poster children for these disabilities. Maybe you have cerebral palsy and other things like that, where that's their problem if they want to be uncomfortable. But when I look at the intersections and how much we throw away because it doesn't look like what you expect, because you didn't take the time to listen. Like when Geraldine was saying, I need to see the big picture to come up with the details, and you don't need to know. My heart broke, because like, what if she did know? Then
Exactly.
yes, she did need, because she could have pointed out upstream or downstream the impact, because we think in silos instead of holistic systems. And
Right.
humans don't work like that. Humans are designed of systems, and organizations, however they want to think that they're different silos, they are a cohesive unit. And when one doesn't know what the other hand is doing, that can be deeply impactful and hurtful, harmful, or we again are just missing out on so many opportunities because it doesn't look like what you expect, or it doesn't sound like what you expect. And it's not you, it doesn't match you, and we don't want a bunch of clones. Nature needs diversity. Forests that all have the same trees are not as strong and do not weather a storm as a forest that's made of diverse people.
Oh my gosh, Stacy, that was so beautiful. Oh, that was beautiful. I need you to write that down. Like
It's not mine. It was, oh my gosh, I don't know if it was a podcast or another panel where people were talking about the environment. It's not my idea. I think they were talking about hurricanes. Like, I'm so sorry. I don't have the source off the top of my head.
I'll
but
Google it. I'll Google
yeah,
it.
so sorry. Not my idea. I mean, I'm amazing, but that's not my idea.
Ileana, do you want to add something real quick?
I did. This is just one of my favorite topics because I did a minor in linguistics in university, and so I love talking about language and perception because of it. So I'm like geeking out a little bit inside listening to all of you speak on this. But yeah, like just another reminder that I'd like to share with everyone is that competence doesn't equal communication. We all assume so much from people's spelling, grammar, phrasing, hesitation in speech, whether someone sounds nervous or stressed, and none of that does reflect, a person's confidence. And in university, I did a research project on speech-based discrimination of autistic adults based on on how they speak and not like what they say. And so we did like mock interviews, and we controlled for content, so everybody was reading off the same script. And then half of the people were neurotypical and half of the people were autistic. And what we found is that autistic people were rated significantly worse on traits like likability because of just like how they speak and not what it is that they're saying. And there's a lot of research on that. And so I think that we need to look at like what systems we can put in place to help combat some of those biases that we have, but then also remind ourselves too when we're speaking to people who may have language-based disabilities.
That's amazing. Thank you again. You guys are amazing. I just need to let AJ know I would like Ileana, Geraldine, and Stacy on another panel. Can we do that? Thank you so much, ladies. Have a good night.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's been awesome.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Thanks for listening to WorkEND, a Neurodiversity podcast, a monthly live panel discussion coming to you every fourth Thursday, 7:30 p.m. Eastern, 4:30 p.m. Pacific. If you or someone you know would like to be a panelist, be sure to let us know by filling out our Share Your Experience form at umbrellaallianceus.org/take-action. If you're catching this live on YouTube, be sure to subscribe to our channel for updates on this and other Umbrella US events. And finally, if you'd like to support the podcast, be sure to leave a rating and review and share with your friends. To donate to Umbrella US and learn all the latest from us, visit us at umbrellaallianceus.org and follow on your favorite social media platforms. Thanks again. See you next time.